Welcome to the ROI Masterclass, the podcast where vision meets strategy and bold moves create measurable results. I'm Liat Siegel, interior designer and ROI strategist with 17 years of experience. I help businesses transform properties and ideas into high-performing assets. This show is specifically for real estate investors, hospitality operators, and boutique developers who aren't afraid to take risks, challenge the status quo, and demand a return on every decision they make. Each and every week, we talk with innovators and leaders across industries about the strategies and the insights and really all the unconventional thinking that turns potential into profit every single time. If you believe that smart design, decisive leadership, and strategic risk are the keys to real ROI, you're in the exact right place. Let's dive in. Today's guest is Chilon Anderson, a seasoned property management leader known for her bold, faith-driven approach to business and community. With over 20 years of experience, Chilon manages a high-value portfolio of single-family homes and is the incoming president-elect for the Triangle chapter of the National Association of Residential Property Managers. She's passionate about integrating strong values, operational excellence, and innovative systems to help owners maximize ROI while giving back to the community. Chilon's leadership is marked by humility, a commitment to learning, and a drive to challenge industry norms. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited to have you here.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. So we have had quite incredible conversations, deep conversations, and I am so happy to be able to share your insights and everything that you have learned along the way with our audience. So please share your story and how you got to where you are.
So I'm kind of one of those people that have a few years on themselves. So I will give you what we call the Reader's Digest version. So about 20 years ago, I relocated to Raleigh, North Carolina. Well, actually Cary. And I was in the process of trying to decide if I wanted to stay in the mortgage industry or what should I do. And through some conversations I had with my then fiance, I decided to jump into property management with his company. And it seemed that all of my skills transferred very, very well. So I learned the property management company under his tutelage. And then at that point, I just started kind of gaining a little bit of traction. It fit my skill sets really well. We sold that company in 2008, had a 2-year no-compete agreement. And then in late fall of 2010, we opened up Above All Property Management. And I literally just started it because I wanted to pay for our daughter's college. And I wanted them to end up debt-free. And it was just a very important thing that it was my gift to them, so to speak, or our gift to them. And I told my husband, he said, would you ever think about opening up another property management company? And I said, well, yes, I would, as long as you're not my boss, because I love you as my husband. And as the boss, there was a little tension there, right? And so we really wanted everything to be wonderful. So he said, yeah, sure, no problem. You just go and take all of the trust account courses and yeah, you do that. So I did that. And then here we go, right along the way, paying for college. Girls are going to school. And in December of 2019, our last girl graduated from college. And then what do I do at that point? I was like, I didn't have any motivation. I didn't have anything to drive me to get up every day. I mean, your kids are a strong driver, or at least they were for me. And so through a 2-week trip that I went to go see some friends in Louisiana, and I would listen to some podcasts. I listened to some praise and worship music, just praying and asking God, where am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to do? And literally in that 2-week period of time, I learned and had such a peace that this was definitely going to be a full-time pursuit for me. A property management was going to be. And I really feel like the Lord showed me where there's so much opportunity to serve people, not just the couple of people that work for us in our office, but we represent over 90 owners right now, and we have 115 doors under management. And so we have tenants in all of those properties. And I would just tell you that we have a great opportunity to serve those people at a very high level, which I think is missing, sadly, in our industry. Not from everybody, and this is just a very broad sweep of the brush, but you do hear a lot of the horror stories that come out, and maybe those are the louder stories you hear, that tenants are not treated well. And so I just wanted to treat people well, and I wanted that to be a positive experience. And we don't make everybody happy all the time, but that is our primary goal, is to just work within what we have to do and make people's lives better. Serve other people well. It's kind of like our little motto around here. Serve other people well. And here we are, 2025, 15 years later.
It's incredible that you're coming at it from that perspective. I mean, even just wanting to serve your daughters in that way, that you were providing for them a path, like a clear and clean path, so that they could start life out on the right foot rather than at a deficit. And it really speaks to your character and how you're building and you've built your business from a place of service, wanting now to have that same kind of intention and integrity to serve the people that are under your care. What do you think is the biggest challenge that has shaped, in a positive way, has shaped that outlook today?
I can think of a couple of different analogies, but I tend to call them prickly tenants. When people decide they want to get prickly with you, it is a huge challenge to maintain a very level head, not jump into getting prickly with them, and just be able to go, look, A, they're probably having a bad day. B, maybe nobody's listening to them, or they really feel like they've been mistreated in some way. Or C, maybe something really horrible has happened. Maybe they've lost a friend, a parent, a loved one. Maybe they lost a job. I mean, you really never know. Life gets to lifing, and it happens to everybody. So we try to approach it from a position of, how would I want to be treated? The golden rule. I mean, come on, it's just so time perfect. Treat others as you would have them treat you. And I understand that there's differences in everybody's personality. Not everybody likes ice cream. Okay, I get that. But at the same time, things like kindness, being polite, being respectful. Now, we try to do that first. But if you're going to sit there and lie to us, if you're going to get prickly in that kind of a way, then, there's a line in the sand that we just definitely, it's a very firm line. But I think that the thing that has to come from each person's heart, and my team, they're rock stars at doing this. It's not like they don't get affected by somebody being prickly towards them, but they're able to maintain their composure while they're on the phone, and they don't let that person dampen their spirit, so to speak. And so I really feel like, well, no, not feel, I know I couldn't do it without my team. My team makes me look like I'm amazing, when in all perspectives, it's them. They are amazing.
That's incredible. Which goes to what we were discussing also before about the team and how important and how impactful leadership is on them. What are your key or golden rules in terms of running a really highly effective team?
You have to stay humble. I think everybody wakes up, and every human being alive has to brush their teeth, because they don't wake up with rose-scented breath. And you have to remember, you are a human too. You're not any better of a human. You're not any worse of a human. You're just a human. And pay scale is irrelevant. How much do you get paid? What is your title? All of that stuff, at the end of the day, I don't love any of that. We have titles here because the external world in property management, when they call in, they expect to hear titles. I'm the this, the that, whatever. We have an operations manager. We have a managing broker, right? We have a co-founder and broker in charge. All the things, right? But in-house, we say it to one another. Hey, what needs to be done? I call myself in-house the chief bottle washer, because I literally wash dishes every day. It's hilarious. But you have to be humble, and you have to be willing to just meet people where they are, and you're not any better. You may have to sign that check at the end of the day, but just because you have that responsibility does not make you a better person. And so I think that above everything else, you have to stay humble. And then secondly, I think you have to stay teachable. Every day I learn something. Sometimes I learn it about myself, what I like about myself, or what I wish was different, or what I think I would like to learn better from another person, or what I have learned that I don't want to be like. But I learn something new every single day. And I think that if you stay coachable and teachable, that there's lessons to be learned in our everyday life, in our everyday business.
So what are the main things that you do to empower them to stay humble and to also show up in a way that's going to be humble for in front of tenants, especially when they're, you have prickly tenants? How do you empower them to maintain composure?
A couple of things that I do, and it just comes from my Southern upbringing, came from Louisiana, and in the Deep South, we call everybody ma'am and sir. So even my staff here, I call them yes ma'am and no ma'am. I say that to them. I say it in front of them. I say it in front of other people. So I show them respect and honor in front of other people. I think that's super important. But then the other thing I think is when we are enabling them to do the hard things by themselves. Hey, listen, I know that you don't really want to call that person and ask for their late payment, but you need to say it. You need to get on the phone and call them. And you can blame me. Say Chilon said that you had to do that. but giving them that permission, that power, empowering their own voice. I think it's important. I have an open door policy. Sometimes it gets me in trouble and I have to stay late to get my work done. But my open door means that you can come in almost at any time, unless I'm with a client, of course, and ask me questions. And I get those kind of things all day long. Hey, how does this email sound? I don't want to come across as, whatever. And so I'll read an email really quick. I don't think that that's babysitting my team. I think it's empowering them to encourage what they are already doing is really well. So it's good. Would I maybe say something different or do it differently? Probably I would, because I'm a different human being. But letting them know that what they're doing is fully acceptable and it's good. It's at an excellent level. And that's the thing. We just want to be excellent at what we do. We can't be perfect. Nobody's perfect. But we can all be excellent. And I think that that's the important thing. And that's what I really strive to do, is to encourage, not just with words, but in deeds, and then empower them to go ahead and, well, what do you think? Instead of just answering their questions, sometimes I ask them, well, what do you think? Well, what would you do if it was all on your shoulders to make that decision? And then they'll talk through it. And many times they've come up with the answer. And I'm like, yep, you're right. Let's go with that.
So you're empowering them to also, like, when you're sitting down and reading an email with them, or they're shadowing you in some way, they are learning, right?
Yes.
So that they can on their own do those things and
Yes.
be empowered to execute as you would and
Yes.
with your approval. I mean, it's wonderful that you also have an open door policy and that you're approachable, because I think that the boss employee dynamics can also and often get strained rather than becoming a family, which is, I think, something that you had mentioned before, that your team is your family ultimately, is it not?
Yeah, we try to treat everyone like family. But of course, we know that we all go home to different homes. We're not truly family. But if you treat somebody like family, then you're going to be honest with them, you're going to be truthful, and you're going to give them feedback that sometimes is not always fluffy. It's not always sugary and sweet. Sometimes it's kind of firm and corrective. But once you establish that friendship, once you establish at least a working friendship, then I believe that you have earned that place to then say, you're dropping that ball a little bit too often. What do you think's going on? And as somebody begins to troubleshoot through what's going on, they pretty much can resolve it on their own. I used to hate it when I was in corporate America, Leah, when they would call you in for your annual review, and then they would say, well, you did this great and this great and this great, and you actually even did this pretty good too. Now let's spend the next 25 minutes talking about the two things you didn't do so great. I don't believe in that. I believe people know when they mess up, and you don't have to remind them too often, other than to ask them, hey, what do you think you could do to not drop that ball again, or to make sure that a much more smooth transition? And I will tell you that my team rises to the top. They go, well, really? I was doing too much at once. I had too many tabs open. I wasn't focused, whatever it is, right? And I'm like, yep, I can see where that would have made you lose concentration. How can you make that change? How can it be truly applicable in your daily work life? Now, sometimes we don't go through all of those little pretty processes. Oh, that sounds so cute and boxed, Chilon. But sometimes it's just like, what happened? What made you drop that ball again? Then they'll go, oh, well, I was just distracted. Sometimes it can be something like that, right? Okay, cool. Let's not get that way. Let's figure that out. Silence your notifications. I don't know. Figure it out. You're an adult, and I'm going to treat you like an adult. That's the other thing. I don't like to micromanage. Hate it. Like, don't make me micromanage it, because I know how to do it because I was in corporate, but I don't like doing it. So if you make me do it, then it's not going to end up well for either one of us.
How does that translate also in terms of micromanaging to the actual properties that you manage and making sure that everything gets done, especially when, from my understanding, the labor market across the United States is really hurting and it's difficult. How do you ensure with systems and processes in order that everything is running smoothly and getting done as it needs to?
So I would say one of the things that I learned early on in property management, I learned it from my fiance, who is now my husband. And he was in the Air Force. And I can't even remember what he used to do, but all I know is he had this checklist, almost like a pilot, right? The pilot has, every time you go on an airplane, that pilot's not going, oh, I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't know. Every time they do their checklist, every time they land, every time they take off, they have a checklist that they have to follow. And they have a co-pilot next to them saying yes or check. And so we have processes. And I will tell you, it took us probably 10 years to fully develop our processes to the point where very little goes into, let's get that updated. They're pretty strict and pretty across the board set in their place. A house is a house is a house. A townhouse is a townhouse is a townhouse. You're just not going to have so many variables that you can't systemize your processes. So we have all of our processes written down. We use an online system to do that everybody can go in there at any different point in time and see where are we in that process. We have an online system that we can inspect our properties with unlimited amount of photographs that are date and time stamped as well as GPS stamped. That's super important should we ever have to go and prove that a tenant did some damage. That's a rare occasion, but you need to be able to prove that. And then we also have systems in place of what happens when you answer the phone. So from answering the phone to closing out the end of the day and closing out the end of the year, we have systems and processes in place. And I will tell you, my operations manager is such a rock star. She's the one who pretty much did all of the hard, heavy lifting as we were thinking and going, okay, we've got to get this to paper. And then once we get it to paper, then we had to get it into an online system so that we could scale. Because there's just no way you can scale if everything's in one person's head. It's just not going to happen. It has to be duplicatable. And so once we got it out of my head and on paper, then we got it from paper into an online system. And from the brain to the paper was painful. It was painful. And then from paper to online system was another painful step. It just wasn't easy. And so I think it's wonderful that people go in there and they'll buy a franchise or whatever, and everything's already set up for them. That's really great. But I will tell you, I know this company back and forth because I've done everything except for actually turning a screwdriver, right? Not going to do that. Don't want to mess up nails. But like being from maintenance coordination to being able to do the accounting, to lease up, to turning the property over, to onboarding a brand new property. What do you say to an investor? How do you talk to this? I've just done it all. And so I can literally talk to any person who's in any of our departments and say, what about this? Yeah, let me give you an example. Just today, our maintenance manager walks out in the hallway and says, we've got a house dropping a gallon of water every minute and we can't find it anywhere. What plumber do we need to use? And I went, oh no, don't use a plumber. They're not going to be able to tell you where the leak is. They can fix the leak once it's found. I said, need to use this company. And I named the company. I said, they can find out where the leak is. And that's, I think, is so important. It not only is important for me, but it tells my team that I know what's going on. I've got my finger on the pulse. We're not doing anything behind Chilon's back. And so I also think it's kind of like accountability with kids, Liad. You know, mom's coming home, let me get my room cleaned really quick. Yeah. Right? Or let me get those dishes cleaned. I know my kids did that, right? But when I got home, the house was cleaned.
Yeah, my kids know, like, how much time do I have before you get home? And
right.
I don't want to tell them because I just want it done, you know?
Right. And I want to be able to, with my team, celebrate the successes. And I also want to feel the pain of some of the defeats. And I want them to know I'm right there beside you. I'm not somebody who's hands off. I'm there with you. Let's talk about it.
Right. You're in the trenches with them.
I am.
Yeah. And having seen like from A through Z, all the different parts, the moving parts, is there a specific aspect that you think needs the most innovation that is really behind that other property management companies just that they don't have right?
Some people want a McDonald's hamburger. Other people want Burger King. Other people want Wendy's. What hamburger's the best? Well, depends on who you talk to. You know, whose processes are the best? I don't know. Our processes work for us. And I feel like our company has its own thumbprint. Our company has its own unique selling proposition. I think that's probably a very overused term in our industry, but it's exactly what it is. And what is unique about above all property management, another person or owner may not care about that, right? And I feel like there's enough business in our area that we can not have to be, like this. We can be like this. And I think that's what's important. And that's the part of wanting to give back to my community, my property management community that I think I'm bringing to the table next year as the president-elect. I want to give back, not just to people that in my community, but to my industry. My industry's been very good to me, very good. I've been able to experience a lot of really beautiful, loud blessings and a lot of very quiet blessings, all because I've had this property management company. And so I want to be able to give give back to an industry that has blessed me. And giving back means I've got to be really excellent in my craft. I got to know what I know, and I got to know what my investors are looking for. What do they want? And be able to kind of see a little bit ahead of the curve so that I can advise them best. And it truly is kind of also based on my broker opinion. So another broker's opinion is going to be maybe something totally different. We all see through our own rose-colored glasses. We put our own colored glasses on and we go, oh, this is how we see it above all property management. But I have friends that own their own companies in this industry who do a very good job. You'll go and look at their reviews and you'll see 10, 15 great reviews, and you'll see 3 or 4 or 5 really ugly, prickly, ugly people saying mean-spirited things. You can't make everybody happy all the time. And so I think that we are different, but it's, do you have a taste for sushi or you don't? Or do you have a taste for rare filet mignon or you like it medium well? It's not a one's better or one's worse. I think it's, what is your taste buds for? What do you want? What can you tolerate? Do you want a fully hands-on experience? And I say this a lot to my investors when I'm talking with them. Do you want a Nordstrom experience or do you want JCPenney's? You're both going to get a shirt there. It's going to be a different experience. It's going to be a different quality. And I call us a Nordstrom experience.
I love that. And what aspect makes you that? What sets you apart in terms of that specifically? And I just want to say also that I love that you didn't use that as an opportunity to jab or put anyone down, but also to equally build them up and say, we're just a different flavor. But with that flavor and that experience, what do you provide? What is it that investors want and they come to you for versus somebody else?
Well, now here you're going to get me talking about my favorite subject. Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay. A couple of the things that we offer is we offer a very, very high touch service. So our owners are getting information from us as often as they want, for sure. And then if there's ever any maintenance that has to be done, we are always looping them into it. Not necessarily for permissions, because that's what that property management agreement is for, but just to keep them in the loop. Hey, listen, next month, we're going to have this money coming out of your rents because this and this happened. Okay. So we keep them in the loop. We also, I think it was super important for us, every one of our owners makes the decision on who's going to rent their home. If we have 3 or 4 applicants, then we say applicant A, B, C, and D. Here's the pros and cons to A, pros and cons to B, pros and cons to C, pros and cons to D. Mr. Owner, who do you feel most comfortable moving forward with? Or Mrs. Owner, right? And they'll say applicant B. Let's talk about applicant B. Then we go into all of this, right? They make that decision. I can't tell you how many property managers don't allow those owners to make the decision. And when we get business from other companies, and I would never, ever, ever disclose who that is or whatever, because I've lost business to other companies. It's like, okay, you just want a Wendy's burger instead of Burger King. I get it. It just is what it is. But one of the biggest complaints that I hear when they're coming to us is that I did not get to choose my tenant and they're doing repairs without telling me what's going on. So what owners really want to know is not so much the information of tell me all the details. They want to know, what is this costing me? Because just like when we first started talking, what are owners invested? What are they interested in? They're interested in their return on their investment. What is their return on their investment? How is this going to affect their bottom line at the end of the month when they get their check? So by keeping them in the loop of the costs associated with things. Also, if a tenant goes south, if they get prickly, if they start acting ugly, then we've got an owner who's got skin in the game. They chose it. Chilon didn't choose that person by themselves.
Wow.
So that's a huge thing for that owner to know that you've got skin in this game. I did recently have an owner that said the tenant left with some damage that was more than their tenant security deposit. And so we had to place them into the collections. And the owner asked me on a phone call, why did you pick them anyway? They were terrible tenants. And I had to remind the owner, I said, if you'll remember, and I said, you were the one who chose these people. We had other options, but you chose these people. One of the other things that I do, Liat, is I keep written documentation of every conversation that I have with an owner when they make a decision. If you make a decision and you text me, great. I'm taking a screenshot. We're uploading it to our Dropbox. We have confirmation of everything. It's not going to happen where we don't know that owner confirmed that.
Wow.
So We document everything. And then the one thing that I think is super, super important and huge, and I'm so proud of my team, and I'm so glad that I can say this truly for 20 years that I've been doing property management and 15 that I've owned Above All Property Management. I've never had to evict a tenant I've placed. Now, I will tell you that's unprecedented in our industry. And I hear horror stories. I truly do. And I will tell you, we have a proprietary system of what we look at, what we can legally look at, and how we make those determinations. And I will say, I believe it does come from a lot of my background. And one of the things that I did when I was in the mortgage industry, I was a quality control and then a quality assurance or fraud investigative kind of an auditor. And I don't go through all of those words. I just tell people I have some background in fraud investigation. I don't have any certifications. I don't have anything like that. I just have this truly, it's bore witness for 20 years that what I've learned has been able to show us who the best tenants are going to be. And I just don't want my owners to have to go through that. It's loss of income. It's potential damage to the home. It is a grief process for the property managers. And I don't know about you, but I want a happy life. Right?
I think we all do. Yeah.
Right. I don't want to go to home and be like, oh, let me tell you about my horrible day. I know that sounds so weird, but I don't want to be negative and every day be like, oh gosh, I got to go to work again and talk with those horrible. We got great tenants and we'd have great tenants on purpose. So I think those are the three things that make us super, super unique in our industry. Not to say that other companies don't do some things very similar, but I believe that they're unique because again, we're unique. We're individual people that have developed a business model around this criteria that we find very, very important and the skill sets and it works well in property management.
I think that you've done an excellent job listening to the market and then applying those learnings so that you can be the best and do the best. That is the markings of an amazing business owner, somebody that is not so stuck in the process. I know we spoke about that earlier, not so stuck that you can't see the bigger picture. And as business owners, that happens so often where we can't know unless we take that step back and ask, well, what's working, what's not working, and how do we apply those learnings to make an exceptional service, an exceptional product?
And I ask for feedback from my team on a regular basis. We sometimes will get in here and we'll synergize together. And I'm like, what do you think about this? What would you do differently? What do you think needs to go on this checklist that's going to help us fine tune it? And you'd be amazed when you give people an opportunity to think on their own. They absolutely do.
Absolutely. And our clients too, like them giving us the feedback, when they're like, wait, what? Why you're asking me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. People will tell you. Now, not all people, like when I lose a deal, when I call it losing a deal, when I don't sign on a new property management owner, I reach out and go, could you please share with me why you chose another company? I just want to learn. About maybe 1 out of 8 will respond. They don't. Once they're done with you, they're done with you. But every once in a while, you will get some feedback. And sometimes the feedback is things that you can change. And sometimes the feedback is some things you can't change or are not willing to change. That's fair because we're not for everybody.
Absolutely. What are the main things in terms of getting a property ready for a renter that are absolute non-negotiable? Like, is the way that the property looks and feels, does that have an impact in your experience on how much you can rent it for?
In our area specifically, I would say it depends 100% on that. People do not want to open the door and live into a dump. They just don't. Our primary price point is $500,000 and above. So we have really nice homes here. People that want to live in really nice homes, they don't want patchwork paint. They don't want 5 different colors of carpet. They don't want 3 different kinds of flooring. They don't want scratch and dent appliances. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't want 1990 light fixtures. It's 2025. Come on, people, spend some money, right? So we went into a house recently. I'll tell you, this is a true story. A gentleman in California just purchased this home. It's in a cul-de-sac area in one of the zip codes that we're not going to have any trouble at all renting it. In fact, if I had all of my homes in this couple of zip codes, I'd be like, what? I would be like, yay for me. So when we went to this home specifically, in my opinion, he had overpaid for the painting job. And it was very difficult to have that conversation conversation with him. I'm doing a walkthrough. He's in California. I got him on FaceTime. We're doing a walkthrough. And I feel like you got to tell your owners the truth, even though it's hard. And if I were going to say something to my industry, it's learn how to say the hard things in a nice way without throwing somebody underneath the bus. Okay. You can do it. It's possible. So
share with us your gold.
I will. I'll share with you completely. So I had the guy on FaceTime and I said, listen, I said, I am positive that this painter did as good a job as he could have. It's just not to the level in which I believe your tenants are going to want it. And to compete at the level that you need to compete in this zip code, we need to do some freshening up. Now, I'd love to call your painter and see if we can work something out and get them over here. But if not, Mr. Owner, can you please give me permission to call my painter and let him do the freshening up? Very soft, very direct, it's not going to rent if you don't do this, right? It's possible. So we went through the house and I shared with the owner some of the things that I just thought, this is not acceptable. A TV mount was left on the wall. They painted around the TV mount and left the pink paint behind the TV mount. Well, guess what? When you walk into that bedroom, what is the first thing your eyeballs catch? That pink paint behind there.
Oh my God.
Also, where a few pieces of paint dripped onto the baseboard. What's the first thing you catch? Your eyeball is drawn to those things. And I said, if my eyeball's drawn to it and your eyeball's drawn to it, what do you think a new potential tenant is going to be seeing? Going to be seeing exactly this. I said, I personally believe this is a secondary bedroom. You don't need a TV mount here anyway. So let's take this TV mount down, give it away, throw it away, whatever you want to do. And I said, and let's repair that wall and paint it right there. And so it's things like that. To me, it's a fine tuning. Here's the thing. Is a TV going to go up there if you leave the mount? Probably so. But the person walking in there looking at that pink paint, that's what they're going to see. And it's maybe it won't be the only thing. But then when you start seeing one or two little things, your eye starts looking for all the problems rather than seeing the tenant cannot see their furniture here anymore. They're looking for the problems.
Yeah, 100%. And a TV mount on the wall. Was there a TV on it even, or was it just the mount?
Just the mount.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
That would be like, no. Bad design or issues, even where the grout isn't even. That's a rock in your shoe. You don't notice if your shoes are free of rocks, you're like, oh, everything's fine and whatever. But as soon as you have a rock, oh, it's ouch, it's a problem, right? That is bad design. You don't recognize good design because it's comfortable, whatever. But the bad design you see like a sore thumb,
It is indeed. And one of the things that I tell my owners is one of the things that's just a non-negotiable. There's 3 things that are non-negotiables. The carpets have to be professionally steam cleaned with hot water extraction, not the little chemical stuff that they drop in there and they do that little circular thing and they throw all the dirt to the corners. That dirt's never coming out. So it's got to be hot water extraction. All the walls have to be a neutralized palette. They don't have to be the same color, but we've got to be in the same palette, because if you got very personalized taste, that's not going to meet the need of the masses. And it's going to then cause somebody to say, nope, don't like that orange wall. Orange is not a bad color, just not for everybody. Let them use their orange with their pillows and stuff like that. And then the third thing that we require is a professional deep clean every time, not once, every time. So initially the owner has to do it. And then when a tenant is moving out, they have to return it to us in the way they can received it. And most of our tenants, I will say all of them, they don't have a problem with that because they've received the home very, very good condition, very good condition. And we can show receipts too. So if they ever say, oh, but it's not as clean as I would have wanted. Okay, I do understand that there's different levels of desire of clean, but here's the receipt. We did pay for it to get professionally cleaned. How can we make this right for you? And they'll either say, oh no, it's not that big of a deal. I just wanted to let you know. Or they'll tell you, well, I think you should hire another cleaner to come in here. And sometimes we can do that and sometimes we can't. Depends on the egregiousness of how dirty they feel like it is. So those 3 things are non-negotiable for us.
Do you find that something like carpeted rooms or certain materials are more difficult to maintain long term? And do you opt to switch those out when you're doing like a turnover between tenants?
It really depends on the owner's budget and desire. If an owner's going to flip a property in the next 2 to 3 years, they don't want to drop 20 grand on LVP. They're just like, no, give me some cheap carpet. But we found some tricks and, you can make cheaper carpet feel really nice if you upgrade the pad. And so we found out some things like that from our carpet vendors. They're like, yeah, if you use this kind of pad and you pay a little extra for that cheap pad, then you can use the cheaper carpet and it lasts longer. And I have found that to be true every single time. we do a paint called a scrubbable flat rather than a flat or an eggshell because we find it kind of covers some discrepancies on the walls, right? Yet you can still wipe it clean. It's a little bit higher grade of a paint, but it doesn't look as, I don't know, maybe I'm going to get myself in trouble, but to me, eggshell and glossy paint just look cheap on walls.
Yeah, that's why satin is really huge now.
Okay.
Doing it on everything, including on the trim as well, like just
Okay.
making everything cohesive.
Yes. So there are some things that are more of a preference that I try to funnel my owners into, but at the end of the day, they're writing the check. So I have to go with what they say. In real estate, they're my principal. It's a legal relationship. And so I have to do what they say. If it's legal, moral, and ethical, I have to do what they say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that especially with whether or not they're going to flip a property, that makes a lot of sense. You don't want to, and I do the same thing with my clients. You don't tell them to invest in something that doesn't have that return. That doesn't make sense, right? But if it's going to be something where I know a lot of multifamily investors will go in and they will rip out all the carpets and they will put LVP or LVT instead because that's what makes sense long term. In 2 to 3 years necessarily, unless they want a quick exit, they're not going to sell right away. They're long-term investment, and as they turn over properties more frequently, it's just easier in terms of maintenance. So it really depends on the property, on the market, and all of those small things, those small details.
It does. And I also would say that it's probably specific to different areas. It seems to be that some areas, they want more carpet than they want LVP. You try to put carpet down in Florida, people are going to be burning up. They want the tile. They want wood. They want the LVP. And so it's going to be area specific for sure.
You said that you use different technologies. You had mentioned one specifically. Which do you use and how do you find it helps with those processes? Anything specifically that helps you really optimize your workflow?
For all of our workflows, we use Lead Simple, and it is phenomenal. It's simple, Lead Simple. You can automate at any point in time during a particular workflow. You can automate it to send out an email, and all you have to do is put in a little bit of information. It helps you to automate everything and not to forget steps. So if we know that we're following our Lead Simple checklists, I call them checklists, Lead Simple calls them workflows. If we know that we're going by the workflow, then we know that after here, from A, we go to A1, and from A1, we go to A2, A3, A4. Oh, now we go to B. So you can make it as detailed as you want, or you can make it as simple as you want. Ours has a tendency to be very detailed because that's just the personality behind the company. We're very, very detailed. If this, then that. And so we like that. So Lead Simple works really well for that. Z Inspector is phenomenal. It's kind of revolutionized how we do our inspections, and we're working at getting all of that in-house. There's some third parties out there that do a really, really good job, but they don't quite look at the detail that we look at. And so for that reason, we're looking more to bring all of that in-house and have somebody, a dedicated contractor doing that work for us. The thing that I love the most about Z Inspector, well, there's several things, but the top vote getters are every photograph is day and time stamped along with GPS stamped. So that's going to be super important if you ever have to go to court of law to prove something. The other thing is that you can put two inspections side by side to see, like from the move-in inspection to the tenant's inspection. What do they two look like? Are they similar? Did the tenant catch anything that we didn't catch? Why didn't we catch that? And then during the move out, we can have the move-in inspection and the move-out inspection. We can see, okay, this is what we're seeing. This is definitely tenant damage, or no, this is just normal wear and tear. And oh, by the way, the tenant reported this even though we didn't see it. So it gives us a really good comprehensive look at that home in a very, very orderly fashion. The way that Z Inspector is set up, it's not going to let you forget anything from the mailbox outside to the front door, walking in the front door, the locks, the ceilings, the lights, everything. So you either have to check it off or take a picture and say it's fine. The reports can be, pretty long. They can be, up to 100 pages long, but they're all PDF, everything's digital now. And so I think those two are the biggest things that have made a huge difference for us.
Is there anything in particular that I missed asking you about that you wish I would have asked?
I think we've talked about everything. Even if you didn't ask it, I'm pretty sure I got really talky and chatty and said something about it.
There's so much to share.
Well, there is. When you love what you do, you can talk about it all the time and you don't feel like you're working. Like I literally come into my office sometimes, Leah, and I go, I am so blessed. I get to do this I get to do this for a job. How flippin' cool is that? So when you love what you do, it does not mean that you don't have bad days. I had to let an employee go on Monday, and I texted my husband. I said, this is the worst day ever. I hate my job. I really, really cared about this young lady. I really, really liked her a lot. But for a business decision, we believed it was not a good long-term fit for us. And so for that reason, we had to make that final separation. And I think we talked about this earlier about how do you do hard things easy? It wasn't easy. And I would say this, if letting somebody go or doing something hard ever gets easy, I think you've lost your soul. You've lost a part of your soul if any of that ever gets easy. I cried, not like boo-hoo, but I had tears coming down. I cared for this young lady and I had to make a tough decision. I gave her a recommendation letter and I told her, I said, I'm happy to support you in you pursuing another place of employment. And if I can do anything, if I can call anybody that I know, I'm happy to do that. Now, conversely, when I had to let somebody go that was rough on the edges, yelling at me sometimes, that was not difficult at all.
No.
I didn't like it, but it was a much easier place because she was insubordinate. She was working around the workflows and wouldn't do her job the way she was told to do it. And then would yell at me, telling me she didn't have work-life balance.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. Like, don't tell me you don't have work-life balance when I'm working 10 hours a day. I don't want to hear it.
Exactly. I always tell my kids, we win together and we lose together. The team is the spine of the company, right? And if everybody's not moving in lockstep,
yes,
despite personalities being amazing or not amazing, then
right,
it can't function properly.
Yeah, I agree. So I don't know that doing the hard things ever gets easy, but I still think that you can do them in humility. And I think you can do them kindly.
With integrity.
And with integrity, it has to lead. Integrity has to be the arrow point. It has to be, for me at least, for above all property management at least. And if I can just say this one thing, I have a zero tolerance level for 3 things. Truly, my staff knows this. If you ever get caught doing any of these 3 things, grab your things and leave that day.
Whoa.
So don't lie to me, don't steal from me, and don't you gossip about me and my husband. You may not like us and you may not approve of what we do or how we live our life, but it is not an opportunity for you to gossip about us because we're working hard so that you have a job and get paid. So for those 3 things, you get fired on the spot. And so, but they all know it.
Yeah.
And it's just not a thing for us. Anyway, I could talk forever, Leah.
You are both fire and love and humility all at the same time. It has been such a pleasure soaking up your wisdom and all your experience. Thank you so much for being with us today.
It has been my pleasure. It really has. You're a joy to speak with, and you make it easy to do these kind of things. So I appreciate that very much.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Chilon.
Thank you.